In this video, I really kind of want to talk about why fall can be a little bit confusing. And I actually want to respond to a couple of comments that I got on a video just a few days ago. I was talking about in this video how a lot of times fall cold fronts can really push a lot of fish up shallow. And so in this video, these comments weren't like super negative or anything, but I can definitely feel the confusion that people have when it comes to fall fishing. And I definitely know this because I experienced it for years. I used to absolutely hate the fall, and now it's one of my absolute favorite times to go out there and go fishing. So before we get into all that, guys, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. Right now for the month of October 2024, I am running a package deal over on the website. You can get a USA made sun shirt like the one that you see here and a bass hat for $67. So it's a great deal and it's real easy. All you gotta do, add the sun shirt to cart, add the hat that you like to cart, and you will see that automatic discount at checkout. Thank you to every one of you who has shopped at Fin Fishing in the past. I greatly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about these comments. Let's talk a little bit about fall fishing. Now the comments, let me go ahead and I'm paraphrasing what these were. I read through all my comments. I don't always respond to them, but I always read through them all because I definitely want to get a good feel of the video, the audience, and everything like that. But anyways, one guy said, when I had said that fish are moving shallow in the cold weather in the fall, that he said that was a little bit of a controversial subject because he had heard kind of the opposite, that fish will move deep. And then the other comment was something along the lines of, if you ask 100 different fishermen what to throw in the fall, you'll get 100 different answers. And let me first and foremost say that both of those guys in the comments were 100% true, right? I think that the fall is one of the most confusing times of the year, and I'm gonna explain a little bit as to why that is. Because a lot of times throughout the year, bass are kind of a little bit more easily to position than they are in the fall, if that makes sense. In the springtime, for example, when the fish are in their pre-spawn, they're getting ready to go up to spawn, you can really kind of track their movement. You can see where they go from their kind of wintering holes to their staging holes and to the spawning grounds, and then back out in the summer to their staging areas and then their summer places. And then in the summer, a lot of times you have a thermocline that develops, and that thermocline really kind of keeps fish in a certain water column and above. So during the spring and summer and even in the winter, fish are a little bit more easy to track. Now in the fall, the thing about it, and I felt like I've talked about this a lot over like the last couple of weeks on this channel and on Bass Fishing HQ, is that bass can be anywhere in the fall. They can be absolutely anywhere. You can catch a bunch of bass really deep. You can catch them really shallow as well. And the big thing here is that bass are 100% all about bait fish during this year. And guess what? There is bait fish everywhere. After you have that fall turnover, you know, the oxygen is now within the entire body of water. So bass can be super deep, they can be in between, and they can be very, very shallow. They can be absolutely anywhere, and different bass are going to be in different areas. There's always going to be a group of shallow water bass, and there's going to be some bass that move up shallow. There's also a group of fish that are just, they like to be deep. They like, bass have different preferences. There's different groups of fish doing different things on the body of water all the time, but even more so in the fall because they are relating so much to bait fish. A perfect example of this is the other day I was out fishing a local lake. I caught bass in 32 foot of water. I caught a bass in 10 foot of water. I caught a bass in 2 foot of water, okay? It's as simple as that. Now, the video that I had talked about cold fronts, I absolutely have seen when you have a cold front in the fall, it is a bell, a dinner bell, as I guess you could say, for bass to move up shallow and start feeding. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that every single bass in the water column every single bass in your body of water that you're fishing is going to move shallow. But there's a group of fish that are going to start pushing up shallow and feeding. Now there's always going to be some fish deeper. So when it comes to fall time, that is why a lot of times you will get so many different answers as to what lure to throw and where to fish, because the bass can be absolutely everywhere. Now, I think the later into fall that you get, the more kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? The more confined of areas that the bass are going to be. So anyways, that is what happens in later fall. You really start to fish, you really start to see fish position in and around certain areas. Maybe it's creek, channel, swing banks. But during this earlier part of fall, when that water is, mid 60s, even upper 50s, bass can be absolutely anywhere and everywhere. And depending on what type of body of water that you are fishing, the lure choice that you use can be vastly different. I mean, bass fishing in Florida right now is extremely different than bass fishing in the Ozarks. Now, is there some crossover there with lures? Like, for example, topwater is going to work in both of those areas. Like a buzzbait could probably work in both of those areas. Now, a buzzbait in the Ozarks means that you're probably going to be casting down rocky banks and in and around docks. Down in Florida, you have a lot of lakes that are lined with Kissimmee grass and other types of vegetation. So throwing a buzzbait might be throwing a buzzbait on the outside edge of Kissimmee grass. You could probably throw it, if you have some more sparse grass, on the end or actually through that Kissimmee grass, or even a better lure that might work better in Florida is a toad style bait, just your typical horny toad. So that is one of the biggest reasons that you will have a lot of different answers when it comes to what bass are doing in the fall, because they can be anywhere. The biggest thing that they are looking for is bait. The other times of the year, like I said, during the spring when they're moving up, we all kind of know, even though it looks different, again, bass moving up to spawn in the Ozarks is a lot different than what they look like down in Florida, where it's nothing but grass, but the movement is the same. You know that they're moving to spawning grounds. Those spawning grounds look a lot different in those two different states, or two different areas of the country, but it's the same type of movement. So I feel like I'm just maybe confusing you guys a little bit more, but I do want you to know why, when you look at fall time bass fishing, why it can be so confusing. And I know, I feel the pain because I have been there a lot. I used to thoroughly hate the fall time. I was confused by it. And even the other day, for example, I talked about fish moving up shallow in cold fronts, and I went out and I fished for about a 4.5 hour period on the lake, and I threw pretty much exclusively a buzzbait. Now, I caught 2 fish within the first 10 minutes of me being in the lake. I caught the biggest fish of the day at the very end. So there's a 4.5 hour gap with 2 fish here, 1 fish here. That's 3 of the 7 fish that I caught total, which means that I got about 1 bite every hour with those other 4 fish. Does that make sense? So it's not always going, if you go to a local lake and you pick up a buzzbait for a half hour and you go down and you don't catch anything, I can see why that would be confusing, because you think, well, Tyler went down the lake, caught a fish on a buzzbait, but you got to realize that these fish are very spread out. They're not as in confined areas. Now, again, later in the fall, they start to group up a little bit more. So guys, I hope you understand. I'm really just trying to address those questions, address a little bit why fall time can be so confusing, because there's so many different patterns the bass could be on. You can catch them on A-rigs right now, blade baits, Ned rigs out deep. You can catch them on whatever, jig head minnows. You can catch them up shallow, cranking, spinner baiting, buzz baiting, whopper plopper. That is why it can be a little bit confusing. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope I cleared up a little bit. Don't forget to check out Fin Fishing. I will see you guys tomorrow.